As we gather today, let us remember that we in the Diocese of Northern Michigan acknowledge the sacred land where we work, live, teach, learn, and build community. This land is the territory of the Anishinaabe people. We recognize the repeated violations of sovereignty, territory, and water perpetrated by European and other settlers that have impacted the original inhabitants of this land. We extend our respect to citizens of these First Nations people who live here and their ancestors who have lived here for over 500 generations, and to all Indigenous people. We also know that this acknowledgement is insufficient. It does not undo the harm that has been done and continues to be perpetrated now against Indigenous people, their land, air, and water.
Will you come and follow me if I but call your name? Will you go where you don't know and never be the same? Will you let my love be shown? Will you let my name be known? Will you let my life be grown? And you in me. Will you leave yourself behind if I but call your name? Will you care for cool and kind and never be the same? Will you risk the hostile stare? Should your life attract or scare? Will you let me answer prayer? And you in me. Will you love the you hide if I but call your name? Will you quell the fear inside and never be the same? Will you use the faith you found to reshape the world around through my sight and touch and sound? In you in me. Lord, your summons echoes true when you but call my name. Let me turn and follow you and never be the same. In your company I'll go where your love and footsteps show. Thus I'll move and live and grow. And you in me. Thus I'll move and live and grow. In you and you in me.
Honey, everybody. Welcome to this week's Sacred Space. I'm Leora Tadgerson, Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion for the Episcopal Diocese of Northern Michigan. And today I'd like to offer you some reflection on the holiday of Juneteenth. So this very important holiday, also known as Jubilee Day, was first celebrated in 1866. And just 1 year prior, in June of 1865, a community of enslaved people in Galveston, Texas, were finally informed that they were, in fact, free due to the Emancipation Proclamation, This had been signed into law nearly 2 years earlier. And while many Black Americans have celebrated Juneteenth in some form for decades, it still took until recently for it to be recognized as a federal holiday. And that happened on June 17th, 2021, when President Joe Biden signed a bill officially designating June 19th as a federal holiday commemorating the end of slavery in America. This past year, in 2023, people all across the country had celebrated this holiday by enjoying block parties, crowning of Miss Juneteenth, and displaying significant symbolism, including the Juneteenth flag and the specific colors that are associated with it, which are red, white, and blue. The Juneteenth flag represents the history and freedom of the American enslaved people and their descendants. The bursting new star on the horizon represents a new freedom, a new people, a new star. The colors communicate that American enslaved people and their descendants were in fact all Americans. And I've got some powerful Juneteenth quotes for you. And the first one being from John Lewis. You must never, ever give out. We must keep the faith because we are all one people. We are brothers and sisters. We all live in the same house, the American house. And the next one by the wonderful Maya Angelou. Hold those things that tell your history and protect them. During slavery, who was able to read or write or keep anything? The ability to have somebody to tell your story to is so important. It says, I was here. I may be sold tomorrow, but you know I was here. The next one by Brittany Packnett. Every Black person you meet is a miracle. We are valued because of our humanity and declared valuable because our ancestors declared our worth when they fought for us to live. And this last one by Jamel Bowie. Juneteenth may mark just one moment in the struggle for emancipation, but the holiday gives us an occasion to reflect on the profound contributions of enslaved Black Americans to the cause of human freedom. So in 2023, how did folks celebrate this holiday? Well, the city of Galveston, Texas provides a virtual Juneteenth Freedom Walking Tour where participants can learn about 5 different historic sites in the city and their importance to the holiday. As for churches, the Episcopal Diocese of Long Island had a Juneteenth Jubilee ceremony and reception. And whereas part of the ceremony, the Diocesan Reparations Committee presented awards to 16 students who have been selected as the 2023 Barbara C. Harris Scholars. In Oregon, the All Saints Church hosted a Black business fair in conjunction with the Voices Project, which is a training program for leaders of color who work and pursue change through the church, education, art, media and entertainment, politics, or business, for important conversations about the current challenges and triumphs within communities of color and our role as cultural influencers. In Maryland, the All Saints Church offered a morning worship service with fellowship and refreshments, and this was sponsored by the parish's Truth and Reconciliation Committee. And in New York, Trinity Church hosted a celebration for children and families, and this included a picnic, book swap, an interactive read-aloud of Alice Faye Duncan's Opal Lee and What It Means to Be Free. This engaged discussion on the reflective and joyous nature of the holiday, and all families were able to walk away with a copy of their own book. So at this point, you might be wondering, why is it important for Episcopalians to mark this holiday? Well, on a reflection entitled Juneteenth and the Call to Remember, on the Episcopal Church website, the Reverend Willis Foster Sr. Canon for Diversity in the Diocese of Southern Virginia, and Edna Johnson, a member of the Church of the Holy Comforter in Richmond, Virginia, and the Principal of History Matters, note that it is important for Episcopalians to mark this holiday. Juneteenth reminds us that we must try to understand and talk about American slavery and its legacies. This includes talking and teaching about slavery in our history books, churches, and political discourse. It means remembering the history of those who were enslaved here in North America and those who have continued to experience and confront racial injustice. So, as you've heard, there are many different ways to celebrate this holiday. And if you were unable to celebrate in your own town, perhaps this has inspired you to plan something meaningful for your own home community next year. Thank you. Miigwech.
Oh, freedom, oh, freedom, oh, freedom over me. And before I'd be a slave, I'd be buried in my grave and go home to my Lord and be free. No more weeping, no more weeping, no more weeping over me. And before I'd be a slave, I'd be buried in my grave and go home to my Lord and be free. They'll be praying, they'll be praying, they'll be praying over me. And before I'd be a slave, I'd be buried in my grave and go home to my Lord and be free. They'll be singing, they'll be singing, they'll be singing over me. And before I'd be a slave, I'd be buried in my grave and go home to my Lord and be free. Oh, freedom, oh, freedom, oh, freedom over me. And before I'd be a slave, I'd be buried in my grave and go home to my Lord.